That's right. Last night, Chris Christie officially dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. Christie's just like us. He made a goal for 2024 and then quit 10 days into January. It happens. It happens to everybody.
They try. They fail. They fail. Happy Friday to you. The Democrats have saddled up with the Houthi rebels in Yemen now. Perfectly mainstream anti-Semite Democrats who are pro-Hamas saw that the United States and the United Kingdom dropped bombs in Yemen last night, killing some number of Houthi rebels who are dedicated to the total destruction of every Jew on the planet Earth. The United States of America, total destruction. And the glories of Islam, victory to Islam. Some bombs were dropped on them, apparently about 60 targets, 60 targets, and more than 100 munitions dropped on the Houthis, the United States and Great Britain, airplanes. And apparently we used one of our submarines also, so launching Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles at the Houthis and blowed a bunch of them up. They don't seem particularly intimidated because they don't care about dying, which is, it changes the equation on the battlefield. And they don't care about their own people dying, their brothers dying, their soldiers die, what if they call them soldiers, and maybe they do. Their jihadis dying, their troglodytes. So a bunch of troglodytes were sent to their great reward. You know what they get at their reward, don't you? It's, who is it? It was, it was on CNN. Fried zucchini explained to us. It was fried zucchini, right? Explained to us that the radical Islamic jihadis have misinterpreted what the Quran says, and they got it all wrong. They teach their kids that when you murder a bunch of people and blow yourself up, and as long as you're killing Jews and infidels, that when you go to paradise, you get 72 virgins. 72 virgins. Now, there's a whole nother discussion to be had about that idea, but it turns out that according to Fareed Zakaria at CNN, they got that all wrong.
The Arabic word for virgin has been mistranslated. The original word that was used in the Quran was the word for raisin.
72 raisins. Imagine the surprise of the terrorist who expected something completely different.
They did expect something completely different. Instead, they got a small red box of Sun-made raisins, which has got to be a great disappointment given what they were anticipating. But they got blowed up, and there's a lot to talk about there. Joe Biden dragging us into a wider war, a broader war. It's World War III. Here comes Iran. And, of course, they are threatening and, doing what they usually do. U.S., Britain strike Houthi sites in Yemen. Some like to say Houthi. They like to say Houthi it's Houthi and the Blowfish got all blown up. So now they're like Houthi and the blow-ups. It's a crazy thing. Left with little choice after diplomatic campaign fails. Well, negotiating with troglodytes is never really a good bet, I think. So I've got that for you. I want to share with you all the news on that. And Joe Biden, it's kind of a fascinating thing because, is it a good thing to do, the right thing to do? Yes, absolutely. It was the right thing to do, and he got the United Kingdom to buy in and to go in and drop bombs as well because, the UK, Britain, they are our ally. They are, as we used to say at the Pentagon, our only ally because the French aren't going to jump in and do this. The Germans, not really sure you want the Germans to jump in because they're a little too good at this war thing, but they can sit on the bench for the time being. But U.S. and British, and they're also thanking the Biden administration. They're thanking Kuwait and a couple of other. They didn't thank Saudi Arabia, conspicuously absent from the list of countries being thanked. Saudi Arabia has been at war with the Houthis in Yemen for years now. In fact, I found this story yesterday. It's kind of fun. I think it's from 2021, and it said that by the end of 2021, there would be 300, according to the United Nations, there would be 377,000 people dead in the Houthi war, because life really doesn't have the same kind of value in that region of the world that it has here, as you may have seen demonstrated again and again. But that's a 377,000, I believe that was 2021. Yemen war deaths will reach 377,000 by end of year, the United Nations says. Pretty extraordinary stuff. The United Nations report projected that the number of those killed as a result of Yemen's war could reach 1.3 million by, but they say by 2030. It's the UN. They love to, by then, who cares? The earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. Nobody will be able to inhabit the planet Earth by 2030 with the way things are because of climate change, global warming. Speaking of which, a huge snow going on. Talking to one of my brothers in Chicago this morning. Big snow going on there, big snow, which is climate change. Either that, it's climate change. It's not global warming, right? It's climate change in the wintertime and then global warming in the summertime. I think I've got that right. And big snow going on there, and an Arctic blast coming into the Midwest, too, where it will be really cold, like below zero cold. But let's go back to the troglodytes and Joe Biden. How many countries has Joe Biden bombed in 3 years? I don't think anybody's keeping track. I don't think that the Washington Post keeps track, because they're Democrats and they're propagandists and they're a front group at the Washington Post for the Democrat Party. But there's a lot to talk about there. About 20% of the world's shipping goes through those lanes going up into the Red Sea toward the Suez Canal. I had a nice boat ride on the Suez Canal one time. It was an Egyptian military boat, but that's not important now. Let's get back to the news of the day. 20% of the world's shipping goes through that strait, right, coming into the Red Sea, headed toward the Suez Canal. And the troglodytes of the Houthis, they know that they've got, and Iran, who's really behind the curtain, they using money given to them by Barack Obama and by Joe Biden and by the Democrats, so they can terrorize the world, because the left is here. These are not liberals. This is the left. But there's a lot to talk about on this front, because it may lead us down the path to a greater, wider war. Everybody keeps talking about a wider war. And we got the Houthis backed by Iran, Iran backed by the Democrats. Speaking of which, I made a joke yesterday after because, I saw military strikes, and there are always jokes in there with the Houthis and everything. And I was texting friends last night because these things are going on, and I made a joke. I made a joke that by tomorrow, campuses like Harvard and the streets of New York and Washington will be ablaze with violent pro-Houthi rallies. And I put the word rallies in quotation marks because that's what the news media calls riots when they're left-wingers doing it. And it's not the end of civilization or an insurrection. They just riot whenever they want, and it's okay. They can attack everybody, burn police cars, sack banks, loot everything, and that's just fine because Democrats, and the news media, but I repeat myself. But I wrote to friends, tomorrow campuses like Harvard will be ablaze with violent pro-Houthi rallies. And little did I was kidding, and I actually laughed. And Michael is like, because I sent it to Michael, to the text, and a couple of other friends too. And I actually laughed. And Michael probably chuckled when he saw it. And sure enough, New York and Washington, Democrats came out in support of the Houthi rebels, because being pro-Hamas and genocidally anti-Semitic is not enough. You've got to be in favor of every anti-Western civilization, death to America, death cult, whether it is Hamas or Hezbollah, the Houthis, a lot of H words. Have you noticed that? A lot of H words. And you got these troglodytes running the Houthi organization. One of them's even named Houthi. Did you see the guy's name is Houthi? You think, did they name the Houthi rebels after him, or did he just take the name of the Houthi rebels? Nobody knows for sure because he probably doesn't know what year he was born. But never mind that. The Houthi rebels, they're threatening us again because they love to die. That's one of the things about them. It's kind of crazy coming up against an enemy, and they're enemies of civilization, enemies of the United States, enemies of of Israel, enemies of the Jewish people, enemies of Western civilization, and of shipping, of course. They're no friend of shipping through the Suez Canal. But we got that. And Democrat members of Congress are furious, too, that the United States would strike the Houthis because people like, Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna, left-wing, anti-American Democrats who are in Congress, and the Democrats love them. They love anti-American members of Congress. The Democrat Party does. Congresswoman Cori Bush, who's a radical and a racist and an anti-American, and they're attacking Joe Biden. This is illegal and violates Article 1 of the Constitution. It does not violate Article 1 of the Constitution. He didn't declare war. But never mind that. They don't know what's in the Constitution. They don't care what's in the Constitution. The Democrats have more radicals in the Congress right now than I think we've had in the Congress since the Democrats were kicked out during the first Civil War. Now it's called the First Civil War, at least by me. So we've got a lot to talk about there because the Democrats. Also, speaking of Democrats, they are mental, aren't they? These people are seriously mental. Also, it should be noted, and I want to remind, that during the Obama-Biden administration, that administration bombed more countries than any administration since World War II. They bombed everybody. And in fact, and they're all Muslims. Muslims, M-O-S-L-E-Ms. They're all Muslims. And every country that they bombed, record numbers since World War II, with Barack Obama, who you may remember got the Nobel Peace Prize because they have no sense of irony, as I'm fond of saying because it's true. They have no sense of irony. But I did a little research today, and and also the news media misreports how many countries Barack Obama and Joe Biden bombed the first time around. But fun article from The Guardian in 2016. America dropped 26,171 bombs in 2016. What a bloody end to Obama's reign, the British Guardian reported at the time. I want to get back to that. But we've got more insanity, too, because Harvard is being sued by the Jewish students there, and that's pretty crazy. I've got audio, one of the students who is filing the lawsuit against Harvard, who is, I think he's been there for 10 years. I think I heard him say that when he started at Harvard 10 years ago, buddy, make a decision. This is what Harvard does to you. But never mind that. We've also got border mayhem, and the Democrats are in favor of border mayhem as well. They're in favor of our cities being overrun and overtaxed. They're in favor of the total destruction of the United States of America as we know it. You remember Barack Obama promised the fundamental transformation of America. So I've got an update for you on that on the border. And Governor Greg Abbott has taken some unilateral action that, again, has the Democrats soiling their undergarments because that's what they do. Anthony Fauci is in the news. Turns out he sort of fessed up to some really major falsehoods because he was on Capitol Hill, and it was not in open session, kind of where they want to have Hunter Biden, but he won't go. He just smiles for the cameras. And then, do you think he's dating any of the reporters, Hunter Biden? You think? Because I know he's married and he's got a baby mama over there, and he's got this, and is he still dating his brother Bo's widow, or did that? How about his brother Bo's widow's sister? Because he was dating both of them at the same time. And when I say dating, that's a euphemism. But never mind that. Yeah, Fauci on the Hill says social distancing wasn't based on any kind of science. And at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, they have reinstated the mask mandate. That's right. Masks are mandatory again, but that's not the half of it because Johns Hopkins has a chief diversity officer. She's their chief diversity officer. And she's got a list out. Now, what is it? It's the diversity word of the month. Do you know what the diversity word? It's like Sesame Street, but for dumb people instead of little children. The diversity word of the month. Wait until you hear this. And she has a list of, categories that you don't want to be in. Coincidentally, I'm in every one of them. I check every single box. It made me feel very good about myself. Yeah, so the diversity chief, Rand Paul, with a wild announcement as well. Nobody wants electric vehicles, and the Democrats are in charge, so we've got to start bombing countries and get into wars. Remember the peaceful Trump years? There was no chaos. There was no bedlam. Now look at the Democrats. It's the old Russian playbook. They accuse you of being what they are. They accuse you of doing what they're doing. Soviet style. We are at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Yeah, Hunter Biden was in court yesterday in Los Angeles, California. He pled not guilty, which is kind of interesting because he's guilty, but his dad's the president, and he used to be vice president, and they were on the phone together a lot during business meetings, and they lied to us about that. And they brought in millions and millions of dollars, in fact, tens of millions of dollars from foreign countries, most of which are not friendly to the United States. And, President Trump has weighed in on the bombing of Yemen yesterday, and I want to share that with you as well. In addition to Johns Hopkins University and their list of privileges, it's hilarious. And they've, I'll share it with you. Let's, in the meantime, go to the telephones, 888-630-9625. Let's go to Dave, calling from Silver Spring, Maryland. Dave is home. Dave, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Dave.
With Hunter Biden, I wish the powers that be would take a pause on prosecuting him and pick it up again after the inauguration so his father can't pardon him. That'll wipe that smirk right off that boy's face.
Yeah, that's extremely likely. Chris, the fix is in with the Justice Department and the prosecutors, and they've been slow rolling this whole thing, and the statute of limitations was allowed to expire by the FBI and the Justice Department on many of his more serious tax issues because we live in a corrupt country. Have you noticed that, Dave?
Yes, I have. And if I could touch on just one other topic, I just want to tell you, I love your sense of humor, Chris. I've said this before, but yesterday you had me laughing for like an hour after when you said that Joe Biden is so confused he's just looking for the latest episode of Hazel in a bowl of pudding. I wish I could get like a best of Chris Plan if you guys ever want to put that together. And make sure that you throw in there also the one about the cocaine in the White House where they were trying to make it look like it was the mailman or the maids or children riding by on their bicycles who could have done it.
Yeah, it's good to be Hunter Biden, isn't it? Just when you thought it was great living in Yemen. They'll fire all these missiles at ships, and I'm sure they have hostages. The Houthis. Some people say Houthi, but I know that in English, TH makes a th sound. They like to say, well, H, you say he. Well, in English, and that's the language that I prefer. The front page of it's Houthi. The front page of the Washington Post today. Strikes target Houthi militia. U.S.-led coalition hits sites in Yemen. Escalation. It's an escalation by Joe Biden and the Democrats. Follows surge in attacks on Red Sea. The Red Sea, the mouth to the Suez Canal. 20% of the world's shipping. And an awful lot of shipping has now been redirected to travel around the continent of Africa. That's the reason that the British built the Suez Canal in the first place. You're welcome. But the troglodytes of the Houthis, not to be confused with the troglodytes of ISIS or Al-Qaeda, troglodytes of Hamas or the troglodytes of Hezbollah or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad or the troglodytes in Iran with the Ayatollahs. A lot of troglodytes out there, have you noticed that? U.S.-led military coalition struck Iranian-aligned Houthi militia and militants in Yemen on Thursday. A dramatic escalation after the group ignored repeated warnings from the Biden administration and other governments to stop attacking commercial vessels in the Red Sea. They talked and they talked, blah, 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 elephant talk. The operation follows weeks of hostility as the Houthis, protesting Israeli military campaign in Gaza, just like the Democrats, so you got the Houthis and the Democrats on the same page there, have disrupted global trade by making a vital passage into a dangerous place for ships to transit. Well, that's what the troglodytes do, The group, which functions at the de facto government it's Iranian proxy, yet another Iranian proxy, and there are a lot of those, and they're all murderous, genocidal, racist, anti-civilization, death to America, death to Israel, mass murderers, pirates from another, not just another century, but from another millennium. Of course, really, that's not that long ago now, is it? And these guys are out of control. Now, I'm going to go to a call in just a moment, but let me share with you what President Trump put on Truth Social. He posted this morning, 7:55 a.m. President Trump said, "So let me get this straight. We're dropping bombs all over the Middle East again, where I defeated ISIS, and our Secretary of Defense, who just went missing for 5 days, is running the war from his laptop in a hospital room." That's what the administration is saying. The news media, that's what they're saying. Oh, the Secretary of Defense, who's in an iron lung in the basement of Walter Reed and can't breathe. He gave the order from his hospital bed, and then he got breakfast, and then they sent the eggs and the fake sausage thing. President Trump continues, said, running it from his laptop in his hospital room. Remember, this is the same gang that surrendered in Afghanistan, where no one was held accountable or fired. It was the most embarrassing moment in the history of the United States. Now we have wars in Ukraine, Israel, and Yemen, but no war on our southern border. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, President Trump says. Crooked Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of the United States. I think there's broad agreement on that, isn't there? And with that, before I get to the audio of the Democrats rallying in favor of the Houthi rebels now, they're pro-Hamas. Look, if you are a genocidal anti-Semite and if you're a psychotic anti-American mass murderer, then you've got an ally in the Democrat Party, and that means members of Congress and college campuses and mobs in the streets, that the Democrats are on the side of terror and destruction and murder and kidnapping and hostages, and for that matter, rape in Israel. October 7th, the Democrats have come out in favor of all of this very vocally, violently, not just at Harvard and MIT and the University of Pennsylvania, but beyond. And what do you hear these people on the streets in New York and in Washington last night coming out in support of the Houthi rebels because they're mental? The Democrat Party has organized and unionized the mentally disturbed. We call it the Democratic Party. All right, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Ed calling from Virginia. Ed, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Very well, Ed. Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Just want to call in and mention that I'm retired from the U.S. government. I worked, had some involvement with Yemen over the years, and I can tell you, President Trump is absolutely right to come out and criticize the way the Biden administration has handled this. When Trump was president, the Houthis and a lot of the other troglodytes you mentioned were pretty well deterred, I would say intimidated. The Trump administration, would take military action only when absolutely necessary, but when they did it, they would do it quickly and decisively. The Houthis, this latest round, they've interfered with dozens of ships trying to go through the Red Sea. They seized one, and this has been going on for like a month and a half, I think. During the Trump administration, if they tried something like that, I think they did on one occasion, within a couple of days, with no advanced telegraphing of it, no leaks or anything. The Trump administration had the U.S. Navy make a few surgical strikes, and then the Houthis went quiet and left the ships alone. So I think this is just going to be another badly handled Biden disaster. I'm not happy about what's happening.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. It's hapless. They only responded at long last out of political pressure, what they perceive to be political pressure. They think it was bad for them politically and personally, and they're running for re-election, amazingly. And they felt pressure to the point that they finally had to act. And then they did it late at night. They hit a bunch of facilities. And what are they saying, Ed? That they hit missile storage sites, missile launch sites. Okay. But if they do it in the middle of the night, there's probably nobody there. So you're not actually killing the bad guys, right? You're just hitting sites, and you may be taking out some of their equipment. They say they hit a radar site or maybe more than one, launch and storage facilities. Okay, good. But, you got to take out the people, don't you, Ed?
Well, I don't know. See, I don't think we should be getting deeper into this at this point, but the problem is that the Saudis were doing this, as you mentioned, for 7 or 8 years.
Right.
Hitting whatever targets they could find, very often missing those targets and killing civilians, which brought all kinds of criticism on them. And under pressure, largely from U.S. Congress, the Saudis finally gave up. So what are we getting into here? Are we going to keep doing this for another 7 years or so? Are we going to accidentally kill civilians? It's not going to go well.
Okay, and Iran, of course, is behind the curtain. You mentioned that seizing a ship, firing on lots of ships, which the Houthis have been doing, and the Iranians, I believe it was actually the Iranian Navy that seized the ship. They hijacked the terrorists that they are. They hijacked the ship in the Gulf of Oman, and therefore the whole crew is being held hostage. The ship, which is probably worth $1 billion or something, is being held by the Iranians. Let me ask you this, Ed. Would you say that there is an ongoing state of war that exists in that region?
Well, there are always conflicts going on, but they don't always have to involve us. And it seems like, remember a couple of years ago, everybody, at least, kind of in the Trump world, was saying, no more forever wars in the Middle East. We're done with this. Yet, here, the first one that comes along, there are lots of people saying, oh, we can't wait to get involved. I just wish for once we could stay out and let other people sort it out. We don't need to be in every conflict everywhere in the world all the time.
Yeah, but you know full well also that if you wait for the United Nations or for the EU or NATO or for the Gulf states to act, that nothing will ever happen, right?
Well, it doesn't have to be our problem every time. The world's always going to be full of problems. They don't all have to be ours.
I get it. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. And you're not going back to Yemen anytime soon, right? You're done with Yemen now. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess my holiday plans are ruined
now. Holiday in Cambodia by the dead Kennedys comes to mind. Yeah. Who goes to Yemen on vacation? Honestly, even the Omanis don't go to Yemen on vacation. Nobody goes to Yemen on vacation. All right, Ed, thank you very much. Listen, the problem here is the choke point going into the Red Sea, which brings you up to the Suez Canal, which is an important, very important element in global trade and the global economy. And if you allow the Houthis, a ragtag bunch of medieval trogs, if you allow them to have their way with the region, then you will certainly embolden and inspire and add fuel to the Iranian fire. And they're looking to destroy the world. They have the backing of China. They have the backing of Russia, because these are the bad guys of the world. And the United States of America, we're the good guys of the world. In Great Britain, America's ally, our only ally, just took action And it is, look, granted, it is going to be controversial. There's, and I would hope it would be controversial. It should be controversial. The leader of the Houthis is a full-blown trog, as you might expect, and his whole thing, and the Houthi whole thing, is death to the Jews and death to the United States of America, and Islam is real good. This is their thing. They love Islam. They don't like anybody else, right? The Houthi stronghold, northwest Yemen, is Sada, and they have rallies and they do all kinds of and what the Houthi slogan is, God is the greatest. That is Allahu Akbar, right? Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. Death to America. America comes first in their death to chant. Death to Israel. Curse the Jews. I thought you just said death to Israel. Do you have to say, well, yeah, that Jews everywhere, even in Brazil and things, they want to curse the Jews. Victory to Islam. This is their slogan. Right? And it's quite a slogan. It's catchy. I'm sure when they say it, it rhymes, don't you think? Probably like the Democrats here. It's got to rhyme. All these things have to rhyme. Extraordinary. The Middle East is a crazy hotbed of murder and mayhem and kidnapping and rape and disfiguring women, and it's a hellhole. And we're trying to build a more civilized world. And it's true, as Ed says, we can't be on the hook for everything, and I agree with that in general terms and in principle, that we can't be on the hook for everything. And got Great Britain involved. We were talking about this last night on my television show on the Newsmax channel, this very topic, as a matter of fact. And I said that I thought it was time for Joe Biden to rally the world. Great Britain is usually the only one that jumps in because they're our only great ally. We have other allies that are fine, but Great Britain, certainly when it comes to military action in the Middle East and beyond, Great Britain is the only one that really gets in. But I was saying last night, the United States of America, if you're going to be the world's only superpower, and the superpower representing freedom and not slavery, like China, not looking to destroy the world like Vladimir Putin and conquer it and take it over, we like to knock the bad guys out and leave the good guys in charge so they can live free. But it doesn't always work. There are a lot of negative forces in the world. It's good versus evil. It's the darkness versus the light. We are good. We are the light. Don't listen to what the Democrat Party says about us. But setting that aside, there is let me go to some of the audio that we have, Michael, because there's a lot to say about this, and I can't wait to get to the Johns Hopkins University privilege list. This made me laugh out loud yesterday. And then I went down the list, and I'm like, hey, I got every one of those. Michael Piercy's got every one of those. It's great to be us, isn't it? So privileged, the privileges that we enjoy. But let's start with the Democrats, because again, I sent on a number of text threads last night, I sent to friends a joke line that by tomorrow, I think I said by later tonight, or by tomorrow, the Democrats will be out on college campuses and they'll be out in the streets. Pro-Houthi Democrat marches and rallies will pop up around the country. At Harvard, there'll be ablaze with violent pro-Houthi rallies. And I was kidding. Now, here's the thing. President Trump had the Houthis on the terrorist group list. Joe Biden came into office, and one of the first things he did as president was remove the Houthi rebels from the terror list because they love terror. They're the left. They gave us all of our terrorist organizations in the United States. Oh, look what I've done to the clock. I've done it again, haven't I? But I went and I found the story. I'm going to have to hit pause and we'll get to the, I guess we can do a little bit of, just a little bit, and then I'll fill you in on all this later. New York City, the pro-Houthi rally, there were arrests, there was mayhem.
It is right to rebel! It is right to rebel!
It is right to rebel.
Go to hell!
U.S., UK, go to hell!
U.S. can go to hell. UK, go to hell.
Yemen to Palestine.
Now, make no mistake, these are the Democrats. This is the Democrat Party. They're pro-Houthi now. if you're a genocidal lunatic hanging women upside down from lampposts, the Democrat Party is here to back you. Yeah, I went and I found 2021, February 5th. Biden administration to remove Houthis from terrorist list, reversing Trump's decision. Now, once again, you can see that Trump was correct and Biden was wrong. He wanted to make sure that humanitarian aid got to the terror group, just as they're fighting hard to ensure in the Gaza, they want our aid to get to Hamas, a genocidal radical Islamic terrorist group that's still holding, what are we at, day 98? There are American hostages being held, and the news media and the Biden White House could care less. If you're an American, try not to be taken hostage while a Democrat is in the White House. Well, there's so much to talk about, and I have a bunch of audio I want to share with you from smart people, military people, and so on, and what's going on here. And then the privilege list at Johns Hopkins University, which is, well, it would be hilarious if it weren't indicative of the tragedy that is higher education, but I prefer to see it as hilarious anyway. And the anti-Semites at Harvard getting a little bit of pushback. Got that for you. All these Democrats that are on the wrong side of everything. And I've got a border update for you, too. I've got a border update because Democrats are in charge. Now, now I'm looking at the clock. I don't really even have time to go to another call. It's an hour already. It feels like 8 minutes, maybe 9 minutes. It feels like. We've got a lot for you on the strikes targeting the Houthi militia in Yemen. We've got left-wing lunacy from the chief diversity officer who puts out the diversity word of the month. I don't know if she does it every month, but this month she's got a diversity word of the month, and it hasn't been warmly received, but it is hilarious. It's an unintentional stand-up comedy routine. That's coming up.